So obviously it is somewhat unclear about what Bitcoin wants to do in the market at this moment, but there are a few things that we can look at right now to give us an insight into what might be happening on a very large macro scale. And that's what I want to focus your attention on today. And it's actually specifically on, bear with me until I pull up the right chart. It's specifically on this chart right here. If we zoom out and take a look at this right here, Bitcoin has been trading in this ascending channel for quite a while, and I want to show you some examples of how Bitcoin has used these in the past. We've got two targets that I want to talk through in this video. The first target is down at $30,000, and the second target, which is a lot more impressive, is, bear with me while I find it, that second target is at $86,000. So that one's a little bit more exciting. I'm going to go through both of them in this video and show you exactly what I think might be happening right here. But the first thing that I want to keep in mind right now is I just want to kind of recap what are these ascending channels. So what we had right here was the market was trending down very nicely. I mean, obviously it wasn't nice, but in terms of price action, it moved in quite a nice controlled way. And now on this very large time frame, I mean, we can take a look at this on the weekly time frame, or perhaps more appropriately on the 3-day, I think is where it works best. We can really start to see that Bitcoin actually ended up entering a little bit of a kind of parallel ascending channel that kind of stretches out to the upside diagonally. And that's not too bad. You know, the market does stuff like that every now and then, and I'm going to show you a few examples of that. And the thing is that to me, this is generally going to be what I would call a continuation pattern, right? Where we have the trend moving down, then we're kind of consolidating, moving up and down within this range, basically, you know, forming a pattern that could perhaps continue the trend. And in this case, the existing trend is downwards, and that can tend to drop us to the downside. We don't always drop from patterns like this to the downside, right? But obviously right now we're at the support level and it's not a good position, and you know, it's not looking great from that perspective. We don't always drop from them though, and I want to show you a few examples of where Bitcoin actually made pretty good use of patterns like this and pumped up. There's one key point that you need to keep in mind, but I'm going to tell you about that later on. I'm wondering if you guys, while you're watching this video, can figure it out, because this is quite important. But let me show you a few examples right here, you know, because again, this is a very common thing for Bitcoin to print on its charts, right? Here's a nice example right here. Bitcoin ended up forming an ascending channel right here, but bam, it broke up, right? Take a look at this. Let me show you another one right here. This one was one of my favorites that we've had, you know, over these past couple of years, just because of how obvious it was, and the fact that I traded it to make a huge profit, which of course VIPs will have seen as well. So if you do want to jump inside, then you can click on this link in the description, the first link in the description down below. That's going to take you to our free 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 way, and we'll see if we can work something out for you if you're interested. But moving us back to the chart right here, this ascending channel as well, also working out very nicely, where the market ends up pumping quite nicely to the upside. And there's another really big one here as well. There's actually quite a few. I mean, if you're paying attention, you'll spot quite a few of them. You know, here's another one right here. This one's slightly harder to draw, but you know, for the most part, we definitely had the support level lining up with the market, and so that is something I want to point out to you guys. And so again, you know, just showing you that, you know, the markets have formed these patterns quite a bit in the past, and we don't necessarily have to drop out of them. You know, it can actually be a bullish thing. But the thing that's different here, and some of you may have already figured this out, is that these ascending channels, they were formed within uptrends, right? I mean, the market had already been in an uptrend, and then it entered this range, and then it broke up. And in this ascending channel over here, the market was already in an uptrend, it entered here, and then it broke up. And obviously the same for when Bitcoin hit $20,000 for the second time in its life. But right now, these factors are different because Bitcoin hasn't been in an uptrend. We're in a downtrend right now, and these are inherently bearish patterns. You know, there's quite a few examples of similar patterns to this actually resulting in big drops in this market. And again, I'm going to show you about how low we could go, and of course the flip side of how high we can go, because there is a very good flip side that I'm going to be talking about in just a minute. So smash up the likes if you are excited for that. By the way, just want to give a quick shout out to Bybit. Obviously you guys know the deal. Bybit is the only exchange that I've been using for a while. If you're connecting to it from certain parts of the world, we will need a VPN, obviously, as you can see from this warning right here. So just be careful with that. Obviously, I can't make recommendations about that, but this is the only exchange I've been using for a really long time, and I love them to bits. So check them out with the link in the description down below, and you're going to get some extra cash deposited free of charge into your account as a thank you for using my link and making your first deposit if you go ahead and do that. So if you want some free money, all you got to do is sign up, make your first deposit, and you're going to get some cash deposited into your account as a thank you. So do take advantage of that. But just moving us back to the video right here, you know, there is quite a very, very nice setup that we could be looking at on this chart, and I am going to get to that in just a minute. But for now, obviously, yeah, we are in a downtrend, and typically, you know, these patterns are not the best when we're in downtrends. You know, here's an example of, you know, a pattern like this actually not working out very well. And this isn't a perfect ascending channel, but you'll start to get the picture here where, you know, we entered a downtrend on this big dump right here. We slowly trended higher, and then we continued dropping lower again. Not the best example because it's small and it doesn't actually represent a long-term downtrend, but there are many, many examples of this. But what I actually want to focus your attention on are these wedges right here. And these are nearly the same thing, right? I mean, this is not exactly the same thing, but it's nearly the same in terms of what I'm trying to get at for my overall point, where Bitcoin will end up forming these kind of, you know, I mean, essentially what's happening here is that we are coiling up with our price, we're narrowing, but we're moving upwards, right? And so kind of the same thing as what's happening right here. They're not actually very different. You know, when you have a pattern like this versus a pattern like this, there's not a big difference. The real difference is, of course, the support and resistance lines are running in parallel with each other, whereas over here, if you know, keep drawing these lines out forever, eventually these lines will join up, and that's why we call them wedges, because it's wedging into something. And so you know, they do nearly represent the same thing. I think these are generally a little bit more explosive, they're a little bit more unpredictable, and the reason for that is because you are getting the price kind of narrowing and getting into a smaller, more tighter confined range. And when that happens, I mean, it's like, you know, you back a cat into a corner and you threaten the cat, and then eventually that cat might just fucking go crazy and jump out and, you know, claw you to bits and stuff like that, right? So that's kind of that has got to be one of the strangest analogies I've ever given you guys. Bitcoin and a cat. There you go. Here's 4 flies at my best. Smash up the likes for that horrible analogy. But this pattern ended up working out pretty horribly for the market. And if we zoom in just a touch onto the 12-hour time frame, it did it again. You know, if you were subscribed to the YouTube channel back here, you're going to remember very well that we were looking at this range, and I was warning you guys that this is exactly the same bearish pattern that Bitcoin has already formed, and it could be leading us to drop lower. God knows that I got so much hate for that. You know, that was a very controversial bit of analysis that I was putting out, but of course, that's how I know I'm right. And those are the kind of things that I try and keep in mind, is when I'm putting out analysis like this and people hate me for it, well, I'm not here to make friends, right? I mean, the comment section, the YouTube community, any community in crypto actually is just not very smart. And so if I find myself agreeing with them, I'm probably agreeing with people who aren't very smart. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you, but the facts are the facts, right? If this kind of thing does offend you, you already know the deal, get the fuck off the channel. But you know, this is something which, you know, again, resulted in quite a nasty drop for the market. And again, we're forming a similar pattern right now. And I want to make this clear again, you know, wedges, I'm saying this multiple times so no one, you know, misinterprets what I'm saying. Wedges and ascending channels are not the same, but they're very, very similar. And this is important because in our recent market where we've formed patterns like this, look, here's another one right here. In our recent market where we've formed patterns like this, it's not ended well for Bitcoin, right? Historically, if we go further back to anything kind of before 2021, actually pretty good. You know, I was able to point out 3 examples of ascending channels that actually worked out really well for Bitcoin, right? So it's not always like this, but recently it has been. Recently, when we've been forming these kind of patterns, it's actually been quite a bad thing for the market. You know, here's another example right here. There's so many examples, and almost all of them tend to be falling to the downside right now with these ascending channels, right? Then we have descending channels as well. So again, you know, just for the sake of, you know, being upfront and fair, you know, sometimes we form patterns that actually trend down, and generally these patterns that trend down are bullish, right? So you can see how this one ended up breaking to the upside. But again, the point here is that these ascending ones, the ones that are angled higher, where the price is moving higher, they haven't been working well for Bitcoin recently, and that is a point of concern. It is something that, you know, highlights to me that Bitcoin could be in a little bit of danger. And so the question now becomes, well, how low are we going to drop? And the thing is that if we do end up losing this support area, which right now sits at about $39,000, we're basically right there. We're only $1,000 away. You know, I'm going to have to expect that we fall down to our next areas of support. And I suppose the good news is that, you know, our support is pretty close. If you look at all of these areas that the market has interacted with to find support recently, it's actually not that far away. We're looking at like $37,000. I've actually got it drawn a little bit better, not on this chart, but on another chart. I'm not sure which one. I guess I've actually deleted all of it, to be fair. So unfortunately, I don't have it anymore. But you know, we have got our support areas basically at about 37, and then some more, you know, much lower. And again, if we look at this kind of range right here, you know, there was quite a bit of trading that happened here. So you can easily, you know, I mean, 35.4 was another area of support. I feel comfortable putting another one down here. There's a lot of support in the 30K range, right? And so if we do lose this area, I think that there's some good opportunities to find bounces in this market. You know, how high those bounces go, I don't know, because the issue is if we do fall below this area, we might actually flip it into resistance. And so if we come down to one of my areas of support and then challenge this line again, you know, this line has obviously been support pretty much since the end of January, and we're now in the middle of April, right? So we're looking at like 3 months. You know, this line has been an area of support, and so naturally I have to expect that it's going to be resistance. You know, again, I don't want to be like the guy that's putting out doomsday ideas here, but you know, if the analysis says that something might happen, then it doesn't really matter what my feelings say, right? Again, you know, I mean, if I'm trying to agree with everybody and get in the circle of everyone jerking each other off to the you know, to high Bitcoin price targets, then yeah, I will just turn a blind eye to these very obvious signs. But that's not the case. I'm really trying to protect my capital here and grow it in a safe, sustainable way, right? That's what you do when you have money that is worth protecting. And again, that's exactly what I'm putting forward inside of the 4Flies VIP group. So if you want to jump inside, then again, these are the steps on screen right here. It's the first link in the description down below, then the @4Flies button at the bottom of any post inside of 4Flies Gold, and then send message to ask me how to join. These 3 quick clicks will take you into a direct chat with me, where you can ask me everything about it, and I'll just send you the information. And there's no sign-ups, there's no downloads that you need to do in order to follow these steps as well. So it's super easy. But here we go back to the chart. This area could turn into resistance, and that could obviously result in some quite nasty price action. I don't want to go too far ahead right now, and so that's why I said the target would just be, you know, around $30,000, which was basically the floor back in summer of last year. So could be the floor again. But you know, this analysis that I just gave you of Bitcoin falling below this level and flipping it into resistance actually works in reverse as well. And this is where it gets a lot more exciting. So what I want to do is actually, I want to pull up this chart right here. I wonder if I can draw it for you first. I probably won't draw it as well as it's already been drawn, but let me give it a try. I'm going to delete all of these lines, and I want to draw another parallel channel from here down to here and just stretch it all the way out. Bam, just like that. And all the way down. There we go. And this starts to look a lot more optimistic. Take a look at this. Let me break down what we're looking at right here. A little bit of a smile coming on my face now, because this is where things could get very exciting. These lines have been respected fairly well. You know, I'm not so sure about the support line. You know, maybe we can, you know, move it a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. The main line that I want to draw your attention to is this resistance line right here. I mean, currently it's resistance, but previously it did flip into support. And what I really like about this, and actually it's probably more appropriate if I just draw one line right here, because I think it's misleading if I use a parallel channel for this analogy. So let me just go ahead and delete this channel and just use this red line. Obviously, this red line has been rejecting the market recently because it is the the ascending channel resistance line that I was showing you at the beginning of the video. But what we ended up doing at a few points throughout this market is, well, I mean, originally we fell below this line right here in summer of last year, and you know, I mean, we were using it as support even on the initial rally up to, you know, $65,000. So, you know, that alone is very, very impressive. But you know, what we ended up doing here was we fell below this area, came back up to challenge it as resistance and got rejected, and that's where Bitcoin actually slipped below 30k and closed below 30k. So it put Bitcoin in a very, very nasty position. But when we managed to recover above this level, look at what happened to our old area of support. It became a new area of old area of resistance. It became a new area of support. We ended up rallying higher. We came back down. We found support off this level again and again, and then when we flipped below it, it became resistance again. So this is quite perfect as far as a trend line goes. I mean, this is pretty good. It was support when we were above it. It was resistance when we were below it. It became support again. It's become resistance again. This is pretty healthy. This is very, very healthy price action. It's not necessarily nice, right? I mean, we're below the level and we're getting rejected from it. It's not pleasant, but it's healthy, it's predictable. And as a trader, that's exactly what you want. So what I like about this is that if Bitcoin does now somehow manage to, you know, continue to find support off these levels and challenge the resistance again, if we manage to climb above it and come back down, we could be looking at quite a nice blast off to the upside. At the moment, we're very far away from that, and so I just can't imagine that the probability of this happening is super high. But there are good reasons to believe that this might actually happen. You know, one of the big pieces of analysis that I want to give you at some point soon, but not today, is actually to do with the dollar. The dollar index has now broken the 100 area, the 100 point on the chart, and it is very high right now. I mean, it has been trending high for quite some time, and it's something that I've been warning you guys about. But the dollar has been in a downtrend pretty much since Trump's election, or around there. I can't actually remember the dates. The dollar has slowly been trending down, and I know that there's a lot of lines, which makes this somewhat difficult to understand. Let me just remove these vertical lines because I don't need these anymore. The vertical lines just represented various reversal points in the market. But what I think is quite cool right here is that the dollar, you know, has been in, well, it's cool for Bitcoin, it's not good for Americans, but the dollar has basically been in a little bit of a, again, like a parallel descending channel this time, right? So if this thing does end up, you know, topping out a little bit, you know, if it rises a little bit higher and tops out, that could be it. I mean, that could be enough to really send things flying for Bitcoin. And, you know, it's worth pointing out, if I just put this this chart side by side with Bitcoin, you know, hopefully you guys will already know this by now, but if not, then it is my pleasure to show it to you because it is absolutely beautiful for Bitcoin anyway. You know, when the dollar topped out right here, this was the 24th of March. 2020, right? So this was basically the Corona crash. Actually, I don't want to look at that because that's not going to be very useful. Let's take a look at when the dollar topped out over here. The dollar topped out at the basically the beginning of January 2017. And if we take a look at Bitcoin on this chart and see what happened at the beginning of January 2017, just looking at my crosshair on both charts, it's pretty clear what's going on right here. You know, Bitcoin, you know, basically, you know, really starts rocketing higher, you know, from this, you know, $800-900 level up to eventually $20,000, all while the dollar is dropping. The dollar is dropping this whole time, but look at what happens to Bitcoin. It's a very, very powerful inverse correlation. And that's generally what we see on these macro trends, right? When the dollar is dropping, it's basically the dollar is getting weaker. So people are trying to put their money into investments, whether those are speculative or safe investments. People want to put their money into something that can hedge. And so, you know, Bitcoin ended up obviously performing quite well there. And then this one again, I think it's, I don't like it too much because it is somewhat misleading, but for the rest of the rally here, I mean, you know, aside from the initial dump because of the coronavirus market crash, which nobody could have predicted. I mean, to be honest, it was kind of obvious, but no one could have seen that crash coming at that time. You know, like it wasn't actually, it's not something you can factor into analysis really. It's a black swan event. Sometimes shit happens. That's why you exercise risk management, because you can be 100% correct and still lose money. And so you don't want to lose 100% of your money, you know, if that happens. So anyway, the dollar keeps trending lower on this index, but that very much coincides with Bitcoin trending higher. You know, take a look at this, how the dollar keeps dropping lower. It even rallies up, but then it keeps dropping lower again. You know, and for most of this leg down for the dollar, just look at what Bitcoin does right here, especially this last leg down for the dollar. This is where Bitcoin goes really crazy, right? This last leg down for the dollar starts at the end of September of 2020, and at that time Bitcoin was trading at about $9,000, and then when the dollar bottomed out, Bitcoin was up at about 40,000, you know, so that's a 4 times increase just because the dollar has dropped. And so, you know, now seeing that the dollar is potentially approaching a little bit of resistance again, I'm not saying anything in particular is going to happen, but, you know, generally when the dollar does get these big macro level reversals, we do see, you know, that working out quite nicely for Bitcoin. So that is definitely in Bitcoin's favor, in my opinion, but it's a very long-term thing, you know, I mean, it's not something that we can enjoy or use right now, and that's why for this more immediate term analysis, we're still not in a good place. And that's the thing, is I'm seeing good signs overall, right? I mean, I always am. That's why I've been a holder of Bitcoin for 5 years, right? I mean, I anticipate that I'm going to be holding it for another 5 years, or maybe even much longer. But right now, what I'm seeing on this short-term chart does show me some concerning signs, but, you know, the longer-term picture, obviously I'm still not too worried about it. So just from this alone, that's what I'm looking at. The thing I want to remind you guys about is that we are at a support level, right? I mean, you know, support levels are where you're supposed to get bullish. It's where it's hardest to get bullish, but this is a support level, and this support level is held since, again, like I said, the end of January. So you know, I mean, I wouldn't expect this support level to break so easily. We are consolidating at it, which I don't like. I would have liked to see a more substantial bounce by now, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. You know, if we do end up falling below this level, then yes, I must expect this area to turn into resistance, and I must expect that we fall deep into the $30,000 range, potentially the very low 30s. But again, there's just so much support in that range that I'm just not too worried about it. You know, I mean, a month is perhaps all the dollar needs to top out, if it will. We don't know if it will, but it is approaching its resistance area, and I think it's performing a little bit too strongly given the situation in the world. But I'm not a macroeconomist, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But you know, what I am seeing right here with Bitcoin definitely does look promising, even in its worst case scenarios. And again, hopefully that's the takeaway that you're getting from these videos. You know, if you're regularly watching these videos, regularly smashing up those likes and staying subscribed to this YouTube channel, you've ticked the bell and all that stuff, you're probably gonna, you know, like it's only the people that don't actually watch the videos and just kind of read the titles and thumbnails that are like, Sammy, you're changing your mind every day. Actually, I almost never change my mind with this analysis. You know, I mean, I did change my bias quite steeply when Bitcoin was up here. You know, because I did start to see signs that we could be topping out, and that's why I exited my long position on Ethereum. But that's not a fucking bad thing. Like, I was bullish when I had to be bullish, and I became bearish when I had to be bearish. And again, right now, I don't really want to pick a side. You know, I mean, statistically, I think it would make more sense that we break up, just given that we're at support, but I'm not really feeling that, so I feel more neutral in this market right now. You know, and that's the thing, is I'm not too worried about it. You know, even if things are bad, and again, this is hopefully the picture you're starting to put together when you keep on watching my videos here, is that, you know, bad things can happen, but Bitcoin overall is in a good place, in my opinion. Like, fuck me, we're at $40,000. Like, this is not a bad price level for Bitcoin. Especially when you compare it to where it was just a few years ago, and that to me is a good sign, because we're still rallying up on these bigger picture, longer term scales, and I just don't want us to get, you know, washed up in the waves right now and kind of lose perspective. You know, that's all, and that's why I wanted to bring up the dollar analysis. But I'm going to go even more in depth on that dollar analysis. So if you do want to see it, then do me a favor and smash up the likes. Let me know in the comments as well. I think I'm lagging a little bit right here, but if you have enjoyed this video, then you know what to do. You know, smash up the like, subscribe, tick the bell, do all that good stuff, and I'm gonna see you all in the next video. Hope you have enjoyed this one, and I'm out. Bye bye.